Hey everybody, it's author DL White here. I was gonna go live with this, but I got too nervous, so I decided to film it and then post it later. So my work team had our happy half hour, and I decided, since I'm down here in this good light and not upstairs in my bedroom, that I wanted to read a little bit. Let me go ahead and turn off those loud noises. Close. I don't know how to turn that off. Closing everything. Shut up. Sorry about that. I want to read one of my favorite chapters from my book, Leslie's Curl and Dye. Curl and Dye is my Throwback Thursday post of the day, and what I would like to start doing, don't know if I'm going to actually be able to keep up the habit, is to try to do a live reading or something more interactive on specific days, and I decided, why not start today? Why wait till Monday? Start today. So I'm going to read chapter 5 from Leslie's Curl and Dye. If you haven't read it, I don't think it spoils too much. It's still very early in the book. This book is out on audio, and let me tell you, Sherelle Palmer reads the heck out of this book. I don't do it justice at all, but it is one of my favorite chapters. So here we go. Chapter 5, Leslie. I was still fuming, trembling as I pulled into the parking lot outside the salon. I sat in my car, sucking in dry air and trying to relax. It wasn't working. Ha! I shot out into the quiet interior of the car, pounding a fist on the steering wheel. May the best man win? Like he has a chance at winning. Big talk, but a glance around told a different story. The lot used to be so full that I couldn't sit down all day. Today I could count the number of cars in the parking lot on one hand and have fingers left over. Truth be told, the whole block looked like a deserted island. I checked my watch and popped the latch to open the door. I had an appointment coming in, and we needed all the business we could get. The front door to the shop was propped open, the sounds of Kendrick Lamar wafting through the opening. The air inside was noticeably warmer, stuffier, and even though there were 2 dryers running and music playing, the place seemed dead. Tamara and Yvonne had clients. Gisela was reorganizing her supplies again. It was something she did to look busy, so she didn't have to do anything else. I reached across the counter and flipped the switch to turn the music off. All hands stilled, all heads turned in my direction. I have a headache, I offered in explanation. I can't take that noise right now. Gisela, could you fold some towels, please? I can see the basket overflowing from here. I watched her roll her eyes, then push her cart away and stomp to the back room to grab the basket. I caught Tamara's eye, but she wasn't watching Gisela. She was watching me. What's your problem? And where have you been? Don't you have Mrs. Isaacs at 1 o'clock? I busied myself with organizing my station and tying on my apron. I filled the pockets with my usual tools, comb, brush, a small mirror, and a couple of clips and bobby pins. I don't have a problem, and yes, I have a 1 o'clock, that's why I'm here. I felt her stare, even though I refused to lift my eyes from the appointment book to meet her gaze. You didn't answer my other question, but never mind, I already know you've been at Casey's shop. My head shot up, and I instantly regretted doing so. The smug, I knew it expression was all over her face. Did you get what you wanted? What is it you think I wanted? For him to be nice and say something in that little southern accent he thinks is sexy? Why, sure, Leslie. I'd be happy to start sending clients back over to you for no other reason than you asked me to. I sucked my teeth and rolled my eyes, flipping the page in my appointment book loudly. That is not why I went over there. Then what did you go over there for? To look at him? Talk about old times? Maybe talk about how he dumped you and rolled up out of here the second a better life came calling? He didn't dump. Look at who? Yvonne butted in, pulling a round brush through her client's hair. Nobody, I answered. I dropped the appointment book and headed for the kitchen to get ready for Mrs. Isaacs. She would want to refresh the silver rinse on her hair, but she liked a specific recipe and I needed to mix it up. The owner at Guys and Dolls, Tamara answered at the same time. He used to be an NBA baller. Kade Cavanaugh, he and Leslie, let's just say they go way back. What? I heard Yvonne screech. I used to love me some Kade Cavanaugh. He went to Healy, then he left to go pro. Oh. Didn't I say nobody? I distinctly remember saying nobody, I yelled from the back room, which housed the mixing sink, a shelf built into the wall, a small card table and 4 chairs, and the oldest washer and dryer set in the entire county. How it was still running, I didn't even know. Jessup Plumbing had to make plenty of emergency calls to deal with that washing machine and the old pipes that fed it. So what did he say about trying to shut us down? Okay, guys, I sighed, coming around the corner and standing in the middle of the room. I can't believe we're having this conversation in front of clients, first of all. Second of all, he's not trying to shut us down. He doesn't have to try, Les. He just is, Tamara finished. And third, yes, KC and I go back, way back, to his pre-NBA days before he was a big damn deal. I guess I thought I could remind him that we used to be friends and see if he could understand the situation from my point of view. He claims to have not known we were over here. Don't mean it's true just because he says it, and I mean, he knows we're here now. What's he going to do? Just like you said, what can we expect him to do? He's got that big shiny shop with red leather chairs and fancy floors and huge flat screens everywhere. He's rolling at least 10 deep with barbers. That shop was so full today I could barely walk down the center aisle. And he's in a brand new shopping center where he might have a chance to catch walk-in customers. I turned in a slow circle, my arm extended to demonstrate the extent to which we were not guys and dolls. We're photos so old the corners are curly, taped to dingy walls. We're plain white linoleum floor tile. We're old black salon chairs and only half of them even work. We're the same people, day in and day out, week in and week out. I grunted, my lips pressed together in a tight line. I was all caught up in the emotion of losing my shop, of seeing KC again, of trying not to remember the time we had together when we were on the cusp of something that could have been amazing. And then the moment it all fell apart. And that was the problem. I was caught up in emotion and not using any of the business sense I'd learned in my courses at Healy. The Curl and Dye doesn't have the luxury of being the only game in town anymore. If this shop means anything to any of us, I said, catching glimpses from Gisela, Yvonne, and Tamara. We have to do more than sit here moaning and waiting for people to come in. Ironically, the door swung open and Mrs. Isaacs came in, her hair covered in an indigo blue scarf. Kara Isaacs had only been coming to Curl and Dye for a few months. Her husband, who worked for the Postal Service in Healy, passed away last year. She'd moved to Potter Lake in hopes of a slower, calmer life. Kara had always had a ready smile and a funny story. I was in the mood for both. Afternoon, Mrs. Isaacs, I greeted her, grabbing one of her hands and leading her to the shampoo bowl. It's good to see you. Go ahead and get comfortable. I'll be right back with your rinse. I emerged from the back room, stirring the rinse mixture in a plastic bowl to the sounds of laughter. Mrs. Isaacs was mid-story. You should have seen Garth's face, Mrs. Isaacs was saying, between chuckles. Raspberry red. He was fair-skinned about Leslie's tone. I bet when you get angry or embarrassed, it shows. Every emotion shows on Leslie, quipped Tamara. That's not true, I argued, pulling a cape tight around Mrs. Isaacs' neck and reclining the seat so that her hair hung in the shampoo bowl. And I am not light-skinned. The hell you're not, she argued back, continuing our lifelong argument about the honey beige skin I inherited from my mother and Grandy. Tamara was a sun-kissed dark bronze, but that did not make her the resident expert on skin tone. Besides, black was black, and I was black. At least that's what my mama told me when the girls used to pick on me for being so light. Well, anyway, she continued, raising her voice above the sound of running water. I pumped shampoo into my hands from the industrial-sized bottle we kept at the sink and began working it through her hair, creating a thick, rich lather. Garth hadn't realized that he'd misdialed the phone number and called some kind of sex line. That man was almost blind and half deaf, so by the time he figured it out, they'd already billed for the first 2 minutes at $4.99 a minute. She was cackling, laughing so hard she had to stop. When we got the bill, she continued after she caught her breath, and 9-6 Hicks Hot Love showed up, he turned so red, I thought the top of his head might blow off. I told him he'd best stop acting like he was young, with good eyesight, and wear his bifocals. And did he, Miss Kara? Every day, child. Sun up to sundown, Mr. Garth Isaacs had his specs on. He was never paying $10 to be vain ever again. The shop erupted in that sound I liked, laughter. I chuckled along with everyone else while I rinsed Mrs. Isaac's hair and wrapped it in a towel, then led her to my station. I towel-dried her hair and pulled out the blow-dryer to finish the job. Once it was dry, I began to brush the silver rinse onto her hair and let it set. The topic of conversation bounced from who was sleeping with whom and thought nobody knew, to who brought lunch to her husband at work only to find out he'd been fired 2 weeks before, to what Mr. Torrance was caught doing in the back of his taxicab on Saturday night. A few walk-ins filtered in, and between Tamara, Yvonne, and Gisela, the shop was busy. Every seat was occupied, and the sounds of good hairstylists doing good hair filled the air. "Excuse me." I'd been lounging in my salon chair, enjoying a few minutes off of my feet, when a heavy-set older woman entered the shop, a scowl sitting on thick red lips. Behind her, a girl cowered with her shoulders hunched, a Potter Lake tiger's ball cap on her head. "Y'all do natural hair?" I shot up from the chair to greet her, but she seemed in no mood for pleasantries, so I got right to the point. "Yes, we do natural hair here. What can I help you with?" The woman reached for the girl, pulling her around in front of her. She yanked the cap from her head, which garnered a collective gasp from the entire shop. The poor girl looked mortified. Hummed the woman, those red lips pressed together. She had asked me if she could dye her hair gray, like all the kids are doing. I told her no, that she would look ridiculous. She decided to define me and do it herself. She didn't like it because, like I had said, she looked ridiculous. She tried to wash it with the whole bottle of dish detergent, but I keeps a mixture of bleach and detergent in that bottle. She thrust a finger at the child's hair. "Look at this mess." My jaw had been hanging open since I saw the fragile pile of something atop that poor child's head. I quickly recovered and led the girl to my salon chair, never taking an eye off the orange and gray rat's nest. It was so dry it was brittle and standing on end. I was afraid to touch it, but then I figured, how much worse could it get? I waved Tamara over since her client was leaving. She approached my chair with wide eyes and her eyebrows near her hairline. "So," I lowered my voice while I draped a cape over the poor girl's shoulders and fastened it at her neck. "Shave it off?" The girl whimpered and I smacked Tam on the arm. "Stop it. I bought a color lifter." You gotta strip that color out." Tamara bent down so that she was eye level with the girl. "What's your name, honey?" "Patrice," she whispered. "Speak up!" yelled the woman that brought her. "Bold enough to do what I told you not to do. Bold enough to try and hide it. Should be bold enough to help these ladies fix this mess you've got on your head." "Why don't you—" I paused, then began again. "If you'd like to have a seat, Mrs. Joyce Black. This here's my granddaughter, Patrice. Mrs. Black, would you like to have a bottle of water?" I guided her to the 3 empty chairs that served as a waiting room and got her settled with a bottle of water from the cooler. I glanced over my shoulder and saw Yvonne approaching my station to consult with Tamara. I turned back around and asked, "So you take care of your granddaughter?" She nodded after gulping a few swallows of water. "I got her while my daughter is deployed. She's over in Afghanistan through the end of the year." And she wanted to dye her hair gray because... "Oh, it's the new thing. I don't understand it," she said, pawing at her silver-streaked hair. "While most of us are coloring our gray out, all the youngins at her school have silver hair." I thought it was silly, and I knew she'd look terrible, but she thinks she can get over on old Joyce. So I don't care what you do to her hair, so long as she doesn't look like a freak show when we leave here. She'll be working off what it costs to fix it, so throw everything at it. She'll learn that when I say no, I mean no. With that, she emitted a loud grunt and opened her large purse, pulling out a magazine and flipping open the cover. I stood and patted her on the shoulder. "We'll do our best to fix it." She hummed, flipping through her magazine. I returned to my station and joined Tamara and Yvonne. "What's the plan?" Tam nodded at Yvonne. "You're the student. How would you fix a dye job gone bad?" Yvonne circled the chair, brushing the dry tresses with her fingertips. I loved when I could see the wheels turning, the mind rolling through options to correct a problem. "I'd start with a clarifying shampoo to strip the color out." Tamara nodded, waving at her to continue. "Then I'd do a hot oil treatment. Leave it on for a good while. Then apply a nice chestnut brown to get it somewhere back to its natural shade. She shouldn't do a thing to it except a weekly condition and keep it moisturized. I nodded, proud. So did Tamara. I'm in full agreement with your diagnosis and plan of action, so hop to it. I stepped aside and pulled Yvonne behind the chair. You can use my station since she's already here. Oh. Yvonne's large brown eyes seemed even bigger in that moment, full of fear, but also, if I wasn't mistaken, some anticipation. You mean you want me to go for it? I encouraged. Tam and I are here if you need us. You're going to let a student work on my hair? Patrice suddenly found her voice. It was shrill and whining. Patrice, honey, I bent so I could whisper in her ear. Right now, Yvonne is your only hope. I suggest you pray that we don't have to shave your head. I felt her shoulders sag and watched her eyes slide closed in resignation. I chuckled and walked away. Yvonne couldn't do any worse than Patrice already had. She wouldn't be playing in hair color again anytime soon. Patrice and her grandmother didn't leave the shop until late, but she had a manageable head of dark brown hair, an armful of olive oil-infused products, and strict instructions from Yvonne on how to baby her hair for the next few weeks. Mrs. Black was so impressed that she made an appointment for Patrice to return in 4 weeks. Great job, Yvonne. You saved her hair because I am sure Grandma was about to grab the clippers herself. I gave her a pat on the back. Lost my place. I gave her a pat on the back and grinned at her proud expression. Thanks. I appreciate the chance to do something besides press and curl. She reached for the broom that I had in my hands and headed toward the stations. I'm going to sweep up and get out of here. I sensed movement at the door and opened my mouth to let the customer know that we were just about to close. To my surprise, Kade Cavanaugh stood in the doorway. Earlier in the day, he'd worn a pair of shorts that looked like he'd pulled them straight from the dryer and a misshapen t-shirt. Tonight, he wore khaki carpenter shorts and a form-fitting black t-shirt that spread over his pecs and hugged his biceps, and whew! I reached out to grip my chair since I was a little lightheaded. A lightning bolt of attraction punched me in my chest and rushed through my body so quickly, so fiercely, that it took me by surprise. I inhaled deeply, sucking in a steadying breath before I addressed him. Evening, Casey. I'd have thought your shop would be too busy for you to be over here, checking out your competition. He smiled, quietly laughing while his eyes surveyed the salon, starting at the reception desk, a plain old desk from Kane Brothers Woodworks. Then he took in the mismatched leather chairs that comprised the waiting area, the salon chairs with peeling vinyl patched with black tape, and the shampoo bowl that was a refurbished and redesigned laundry sink. To the naked and maybe the more upscale eye, the curl and dye wasn't much to look at, but people came to the curl and dye for the atmosphere. I mean, with all due respect, Leslie, Casey shrugged and gestured toward the small salon. You're not my competition. That lofty, lightheaded feeling was zapped as quickly as it came on. It felt like I landed face first on the pavement. There went my moment of attraction. Tamara stood beside me, her arms crossed. Look who decided to slum it over on the old side of Potter Lake. I'm not slumming. I hadn't been over here since I moved back, and you decided to pop in and start some shit with us? Casey's eyes narrowed and his brows formed a V of irritation. The glare he gave Tamara gave me an uneasy feeling. Tam, why don't you close out the day for me? Pull the receipts and get the deposit ready. I led her to the front desk and pulled out the chair for her to sit. As soon as she was settled, I grabbed Casey's arm and guided him back out of the shop into the warm evening. I heard Tamara grumbling, not even under her breath, as she sat at the desk and began the daily closing ritual. What do you want? I asked him, noting the enormous black Escalade parked in front of the window. We're about to close up. He shrugged a shoulder, tossing his keys from one hand to the other. Back in college, he used to do the same with the basketball. I just was around and bullshit. You have no reason to be on this side of the lake except to be snooping around this shop. So what? You wanted to gloat? To say some more shit about stealing my clients? I'm not steal... He heaved a deep sigh and shoved both hands into his pockets. I felt bad about earlier. You surprised me by showing up here at the shop. I felt cornered, and I get mouthy when I feel like that. Listen, I think we got off on the wrong foot. No, I think the foot we got off on was right. You came out here and opened a business in direct competition with mine. That was not my intent, Leslie. I keep telling you, I didn't know this shop was here. Well, now you do. I paused, giving a wide-eyed stare at ruggedly bushy eyebrows, at long, undeservedly lush lashes, at almond-shaped eyes, at full lips, and a well-edged goatee. Damn, he was fine. He'd always been fine, but damn, he was fine. Now I do, he acknowledged with the head nod. All I'm saying is we should be able to coexist. Coexist? Seriously? I gestured toward the building that was the Curl and Dye, catching a glimpse of Yvonne and Tamara standing in the middle of the shop watching us talk. I pulled him away from the window toward the driver's side door of his truck. It would be one thing if you were just a barber shop. Most of the men in this town do their own hair. They only come to me if they want something real nice. That cheap cut you offer is perfect for them. He scoffed, but I ignored it. We can't coexist because women are coming to your shop instead of mine. For services I offer, my mother offered, my Grandy offered for years. Your shop could lose a customer or 3 and it wouldn't hit your bottom line. I need every customer I can get. Your shop is some kind of... I shrugged, shaking my head. Get-rich-quick scheme, it seems. Except you're already rich, so now you're just being greedy. The Curl and Dye is my bread and butter. It keeps me and my parents in food and electricity and Grandy in good care at Primrose Gardens. It's about more than a cheap haircut. I began to back away from him and his truck and his intoxicatingly sexy-smelling cologne. He was making me heady, and I was feeling all kinds of really familiar feelings from being too close to him. I just want to run my shop, Casey. And I want to run mine, he responded, a hand splayed across his chest. What do you want me to do, Leslie? Close up? Give up my business because you got first dibs? I sighed, lifting my face to the starry sky. No, I finally answered, making my way to the door. I want you to stay out of my way. You do your thing over on that side of the lake, and I'll... Leslie! Gisella's high-pitched wail made me whip around, my eyes wide in expectation. She tore through the shop from the back room out to the parking lot. The pipe busted again! Hurry! Shit, I hissed, rushing back inside, where water was gushing from the back room and quickly spreading through the shop and toward the front door. Where's your shut-off valve? I heard Casey yell, hot on my heels. Behind the washer, I yelled back. Tamara was already pulling the washer away from the wall. Casey helped, easing the old monstrous machine out of its spot and reaching his long arms behind it to shut off the water at the valve. The busted pipe stopped gushing, now just trickling out what was left inside. Gisela and Yvonne grabbed the towel stacked on the shelf and began sopping up water. Tamara grabbed the mop and bucket and began swiping waves toward the drain under the sink. Casey was squatting in front of the pipe, inspecting it. Looks like it's been soldered a couple times. Not very well, though. This pipe needed to be replaced a long time ago, Leslie. It's not to code. I know, I said, leaning against the door jamb. The last time Jessup was here, they said it was a temporary fix until I replaced them. I waved a hand at the mess that was our plumbing system. The whole place needs to be redone. I just haven't yet. I could probably give you a better fix. At least replace this pipe. It'll buy you some time. Casey looked up at me from his squatting position. His eyes were earnest, his expression neutral. It was as if time had never passed, and we had never had that conversation where I gave him an ultimatum, and he didn't take it. I chuckled, grabbing his arm, then laughing at the thought that I could pull him up. He was well over 100 pounds heavier than me. I don't need you to fix my pipes, Casey. Not those pipes, anyway. Once he'd slowly made his way up, I urged him out of the shop toward the front door. I have a daddy and a granddaddy, and believe it or not, there's still a plumber or 2 over here. They'll come out and take care of it. Casey stood next to his truck and glanced back at the other girls, working hard to clean up the mess, like he didn't want to leave. Go on, get back to your shop. It must be helpless without you telling him exactly how to give that cheap-ass haircut y'all do. You got jokes, Casey chuckled. The sound of it a light rumble from his chest that hit me directly in mine. My feelings were all out of control, and I needed this man and his eyes and his laughter and his chest and his cologne to get the hell off of my side of Potter Lake. He opened the driver's side door and climbed up into his truck, slamming the door shut. The truck roared to life a moment later. Then I heard the quiet whir of the window sliding down. Not for nothing, but you know my dad's a general contractor. I learned the business inside and out growing up. I know my way around a busted pipe and some plumbing too. Let me know if you need help, alright? I rolled my eyes and turned to go back inside. I would have to be bleeding and on fire to ask that man for help. That was chapter 5 of Leslie's Curl and Dye. This is an enemies to lovers, second chance, small town, black romance. If you are trope deficient, you will really enjoy this book. This book kind of just came to me one day after watching like Beauty Shop and Barber Shop, and I just really liked the Beauty Shop gossipy atmosphere, the sisterhood that goes on in those kinds of businesses. Also the barbershop shit talk kind of atmosphere. My brother is a barber. He runs a shop, and after spending a little bit in his shop, it just was kind of I like the, I guess I just like the feel. I like the mood of a barber shop, and the premise of the story is that Casey and Leslie used to date in college, and right when things were about to get hot and heavy for them, he dropped out, presumably to enter the NBA draft. But there's a bit of a backstory with Casey, and there's a reason that he left school and took a chance on the NBA draft. It involves his family and his mother, who was ill, and at the time he could use the money to help her and his family. So Casey basically dropped out of school, leaving her behind, and he really wanted Leslie to, let's be friends, whatever, but she was pretty much in love with him by that point and was very hurt by his decision to drop out of college and join the NBA, and so she cut him off and said, don't expect me to be sitting back here being, your groupie back here while you're off living the NBA life, and refused to talk to him again. So it's been 15 years since they've seen each other and been around each other, and he basically, due to an injury, ends up retiring in Potter Lake. It was, his old college town. His best friend lives there, and decides to open up a business in this little town that's about 15 minutes away from their college town. The mayor's like, hey, we're growing, expanding, there's nothing going on that side of the lake. Come open up a business, we'll give you some tax abatement, some incentives. So Kade decides to pour his post-NBA investment into opening up a little shop in this little black town. Little does he know, his ex-girlfriend's mom's shop still lives on the other side of town. It still exists. And so because Casey has opened, someone's hanging around, because Casey has opened this co-ed barber shop that's all slick and new and shiny, people are leaving the Curl and Dye and going to Guys and Dolls, which is Casey's shop, which causes them to butt heads. This means war, and that's basically where we begin in the story. That's the premise of Leslie's Curl and Dye. So that book is available on, it's wide, so it's on Amazon, it's on Nook, it's on Apple Books. You can get it on Scribd, it's on Hoopla, you can request it at your library. It's also available in paperback, and it's also available in audio at Audible, Scribd, at your library. It's, everywhere. You can request it everywhere. There's somewhere you want to get it and you can't find it, email me, I'll figure out how you can get it. So it's also available in Audible Escape. So it's like Kindle Unlimited for audiobooks on Audible. So hope you enjoyed the little live read. I'm trying to get better at it. I stumbled around a little bit, but better and better. We'll see you next week.